what's right and what's wrong, what they can do, what they can't do. In a way, they're confining themselves in a box.
I see.
Of technical mastery, we could call it.
Yeah.
Which, of course, is not the same thing as being musicians, and not the same thing as being writers or being people who are enmeshed in the world that we live in.
And of course, towards the end, what we're going to do is we're going to come full circle, and we're going to talk about the distinct importance of writing as a component of liberal arts in the production of the Berkeley musician. So now, let me take a tour to another matter, which is this piece that you wrote on your colleagues, which is partly charming, but the partly challenging. It challenges you by charming you. Let me first read it to my viewers, and then we'll talk about it. With you. Okay. Yes, right here. This one. All right. Viewers, enjoy this. It's called On Decorous Colleagues. My esteemed colleague from biology may not be in a position to make an informed judgment on the appropriateness of our young assistant professor of history teaching a course on Germany between the wars. We sit under these smoky beams of a long room just under the roof of a red stone Gothic building on the campus of a college near Boston. Mottos or the names of ancient scholars were carved out into the upper woodwork when the building was constructed. But it's difficult to read the inscriptions in the yellow light leaking from fixtures dulled by time and experience. The faculty sit on long benches, ranked 3 or 4 high on either side, facing each other across a narrow neutral zone in the center of the room. The faculty have met here several times a semester for over 100 years to discuss issues of the day and to vote on policy. The indirect, decorous, and formal discussion has been scrapped of spontaneity and sincerity. Competing debaters vie for the high ground in this moral battle. The distinguished chair of history should know that I do not intend to speak out of turn. It is true that I do not share his training in the methodology of his discipline, although I have a certain professional experience that I may bring to bear on this controversy. My point, sir, is that the newest member of your department is eminently qualified to teach any course in her area of specialty. How do you know that? I assume that she has been as carefully vetted as any other successful candidate for entry into our faculty. When I looked at her dossier, I was most impressed not only by her training, but by where she acquired it. She holds advanced degrees from Yale, spent several years on fellowship doing research in Germany, and wrote her dissertation on the rise of Nazism after the Great War. How does that guarantee that she will do justice to Adolf Hitler? The pause is massive. The stillness unbroken for a long count as we absorb the question posed by the chair of history. Justice, sir? I believe that has already been done. The assistant professor is a woman and a Jew. Now, despite the tweed jackets, the leather elbow patches, the heavy woolen knee-length dresses, the dark ties and polished toe-capped shoes, despite the 100 years of measured speech, conservative governance, formal and self-satisfied peroration, Despite the oak and mahogany polished black by pale hands, the demons have reappeared, and we know no exorcism to banish them forever. Telling. What is the message that you're trying to convey, Doug? If there is a single message.
Well, I have to start by saying that I've had always a very ambivalent relationship with academia, in that I was very privileged and lucky to go to excellent schools, and I was always I was never put in a situation where my own interests were smothered or squashed by outside sources. So I've been extremely fortunate in that way. However, when I started, well, one consequence of that was that I went in and out of the university quite a bit during my studies to do other things and come back, and taking leaves of absence. And when I finally was very near the end of my studies and got my first job as a professor, I found myself in a very conservative, excellent college in this area. That's why I came to Boston originally, in which there were some extremely conservative and unpleasant views held by members of the faculty. But these views were always expressed in these kind of indirect and, how should I say, highly polished and insincere ways. And so literally, for many years, the faculty had been meeting in a room as the one I described, and speaking back and forth in these kinds of ways without ever confronting the real questions at hand, honestly. And so it's a great surprise in the middle of all of that verbiage, the way that people speak, to suddenly have them lose their composure and blurt out the actual prejudice that I was observing among them. And it was very shocking to me to see that happen in that kind of a setting, although I suppose I should have expected that that would happen sooner or later. And of course, that's connected for me to the fact that we have inside the university, the university is not filled with all moral characters. And we have people who hold extreme points of view and who argue about them forcefully in ways that are detrimental to the students and the faculty and to the culture in general. And yet, since they sit in these grand institutions of learning, they have a certain cachet or importance attached to them just because they're professors. Whereas in fact, that's what they say is very damaging to the spirit, and
That's right.
And is unconscionable, not something that should be expressed, and certainly not in a place where we need to discuss ideas without losing our personal control. So that's what I was trying to get at in this piece. They start out speaking in the ancient rhetoric